Hello and welcome to 𝐬𝐭𝐚 Europa League semi-finals. Great games we have on Thursday. Roma, Leverkusen, Juve, Sevilla. So let's analyze these two games with Dani, with Alvaro. Hello. And with everyone. Remember, as always, leave your comments telling us your tips. And don't forget, press the like and subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. And of course, there are so many angles to analyze these two games in the Europa League semi-finals. The first one we are going to put the focus on is Roma, Bayer Leverkusen, and we have to look at the bench. I think in this game we have Mourinho against Xabi Alonso, the professor against the pupil or the student, we can say. And Dani, we know how special are these nights at the Olímpico, how Roma is very strong in Europe when they are playing at home, but they are getting to this game probably in the worst moment of the season, at least in Serie A.
They are also because not only because they lost against Inter, drew against Monza, so they are outside of the Champions League zone, but because they've been plagued by the injuries. Very, very unlucky, in the decisive moment of the season to lose the likes of Wijnaldum, Dybala, Belotti, Karsdorp, Smalling, Kumbulla, Llorente, and then you got a couple of suspensions as well they need to deal with in the league. So yes, they drop points. I think you need to feel for them. They really couldn't do more than what they actually did in the last two games. Against Inter, they put a good fight, couple of good saves from Onana, but yeah, they didn't look at the races at all. And there is always a little bit of nervousness around Mourinho, around Roma. Again, the polemics against the referees, midweek against the referee 𝐿𝐭𝐴, said he's the worst ever he's ever found, went to the bench with a microphone to record everything to protect himself. Then after the game against Inter, he had a dig at the club who's not speaking enough. I think the roads of Mourinho and Roma are going this way. They're going to separate at the end of the season. He still has a year in his contract, but I think he feels the club is not be able to give him maybe the players and the resources for him to take the next step. And yet this season Roma has strengthened. And yet I think Roma this season are a better side than last season. But at the beginning of the season, everyone was expecting Roma to play better football. They just became more effective, more hard to beat, score less goals, concede many less goals, and that's the strength. But maybe in Italy, they will finish outside of the top four, but I think that could be understandable, although it would be a shame for them to finish outside of the top four and below Lazio, because they got a better squad than Lazio. So that would be bad for them. But in Europe, in the head-to-head, these things go out of the window, really. Doesn't really matter the style of play. And I think Roma are better suited for knockout games where the small margins, the details counts. The recent record in Europe is fantastic. This season Europa League, last season Conference League, the season before under Fonseca, semi-final of the Europa League against Manchester United. So really, really strong numbers for Roma. Yes, they are nervous. Yes, they are going to be struggling for goals. And, there is a stat that really tells how difficult for them is to find goals. They never won in the last 13 Serie A games when they conceded. So they tend to win 2-0. They're really difficult for them to score more than a goal and to concede, or maybe to win from behind. But, ask the likes of Salzburg, Real Sociedad, Feyenoord, the last season, Bodo Glimt, Leicester. The Olímpico factor, yes, it is a factor. They're gonna, this is gonna play a part, and they're gonna play a Bayer Leverkusen side who's very young. Is a side that's been turned around by Xabi Alonso. When he picked them up, they were 6 from bottom, and now they're close to European zones. They're not going to go to the Champions League, but they're going to go maybe to next season's Europa League. It's a young side. They created a lot against Union Saint-Gilloise. They also conceded a lot. I don't think they ever gave the impression that they were going to be far superior. Some of the goals were a little bit episodical, but they are unbeaten in 8 games away from home. You're going to tackle this in 2 different ways. You're going to go for the usual Mourinhata, Mourinho style, under 2.5 goals, doesn't pay amazingly well. Maybe go for under 1 goal in the first half, 183. So if there's only 1 goal in the first half, you get your money back. Or if you are confident, as I am, that Roma are going to edge it, and I think they could edge it, because experience counts in these games, you can go for a Roma win and under 3.5 goals. It pays so well. 286 for this mini ACCA for a very low scoring game. Roma win, even a 2-1 Roma win gives you 286.
Leverkusen, they lost at the weekend against Cologne, breaking the unbeaten record of 14 games unbeaten for Xabi Alonso. Alvaro, do you expect goals here? Do you expect the magic and the mystic of the Olímpico playing a big role, apart from the episodes and the games Dani reminded us? Also, we saw it even in the Champions League, of course. Even against Liverpool in those semifinals, they were this close to get nervous and to crack down. What do you expect here?
Well, the Olímpico factor, of course, is important. I mean, they have lost just one of their last 25 European home matches, which is incredible, really. Those are European royalty numbers. But I think the Jose Mourinho factor is as big. Last season, the Conference League was won keeping clean sheets. And this year, Roma, I think that if they win, they are to win this competition, it's going to be thanks to their defense. And Jose Mourinho is very good in keeping very tight ties. I think that he can do it here. And for example, there is a value over there that I kind of like. I'm not going to go for it, but I think that it's worth flagging 100%, which is the clean sheet for Roma, 2.6. I understand why the value is so high. It's because Bayer Leverkusen has been scoreless only in 4 games in 2023. Normally they score many goals, and in the Europa League they have scored many too. This game or this tie is the route for the Champions League for both, really. I think that Bayer Leverkusen is not going to make it to the Champions League via the Bundesliga, because they are 8 points away from the 4th spot, whereas Roma is 5 points away from the 4th qualified. They still have a chance, but it's going to be difficult. So this is a route for the Champions League. Roma is not in a good moment. They lost to Inter, but as I said before, they know how to prepare these games, especially with Mourinho, and they have been very reliable at home in the knockouts in the Europa League this season.
Yes.
They've got an 8-1 aggregate scoreline in the home games against Salzburg, Real Sociedad, and Feyenoord. They don't score many goals, as Daniele said. They have scored this season 45 goals only. I was reading in La Gazzetta dello Sport that is their worst tally since 93-94. But for example, there is a guy called Paulo Dybala who is scoring many goals, and he has scored 16 in all competitions this season. So for example, Dybala to score or assist, if he's available for the game, because I always have that doubt with Dybala, I'm sorry, but I think that he is very prone to injuries, but I think that he's fine. Dybala to score or assist, 191. I like this one here, but yes. I wouldn't go too crazy about it, because Dybala is a player who doesn't naturally offer top players' numbers, but definitely the money is good for a good player. But my favorite here is definitely Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Roma. That pays 175. If they draw, you suffer half a lose. If they win, you are winning your stake. And Leverkusen is right now in a good moment, definitely, despite losing to Köln in the Rhine Derby. They were many games unbeaten before that defeat. It's the first defeat since February. And Leverkusen has scored in every Europa League knockout game. This is something that you shouldn't overlook either. But still, I'm staying with Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Roma, and maybe the Jose Mourinho factor.
Well, Roma haven't won since they qualified for the semifinals, for winless games. And we have also, I think, to highlight this image of Mourinho and the team in the middle of the pitch, together with the Tifosi, trying to prepare and to build up a good atmosphere, despite all the problems that Dani flagged, to put all together a good atmosphere to play this game. This is European royalty. These teams met in the Champions League the last 2 times, 2015 and 2004. Last time, actually, Roma won at the Olímpico, and the bookies actually plays Leverkusen as slightly favorites for this game, 1.9, Roma 2.10. You can see how tight is this tie, very tight margins, probably. Of course, everything to be decided in Germany, in Leverkusen. And the other game, also European royalty, because we are talking about European champions Juventus, about Europa League Masters, Sevilla, Juve, Sevilla. This is a stadium with good memories for Sevilla. Actually, they won a Europa League title in that stadium, and this one, the bookies plays Juventus really favorites, but I don't see it this way. Dani will tell us later if he likes or see a lot of problems with Juventus, but they are far for being brilliant despite the squad they had. And Sevilla, Dani, Alvaro, they came from the dead, the world of the deads, and they are getting great results with Mendilibar doing simple things and putting important players at the pitch, and they are able to beat every single team as they show us against Man United.
Yeah, sometimes suffering, sometimes with more ease, but Sevilla has done it with Mendilibar. He has steered the ship in the right direction. He got Sevilla to the Europa League semi-finals, and in the league, Sevilla is safe now, and they still have a tiny option of qualifying for Europe for the next season. I think that the key thing here is that the second game is going to be at Sánchez Pizjuán. I will understand, for example, the very favorable odds for Juventus if the second leg was at Juventus ground, but the second leg being at Sánchez Pizjuán, I think that this is going to be quite tight. And Sevilla to qualify pays 225, Juventus to qualify pays 172. Is this disproportionate? Maybe a little bit, not too much. However, the odds that are, in my opinion, too welcoming, if you believe in Sevilla, are the odds for this individual game, because Sevilla to win this game pays 520. I mean, there is a super tempting one, which is an Asian handicap -1 for Sevilla, just for the amount of money you are getting, Edu. You're getting 1250 for Sevilla to win, for example, 3-1, 2-0. But anyway, it's not for me that one, but worth flagging it. Simplicity is the key to Mendilibar's Sevilla. As you said, Mendilibar has said that he had to do the simple things well. In my opinion, he is doing enough to earn a contract for the next season, but Sevilla is still a little bit doubtful about giving a new contract to Mendilibar for them. Extending, Mendilibar's contract. Sevilla didn't play in the weekend. This is obviously very helpful for them. The best players have been rested. Sevilla cannot afford to rotate a lot because the squad is not that good. It's very complete. They got depth, but the first 11 is much better than the players that come out from the bench. Ocampos and Nesiri, Fernando, 𝐜𝐭𝐿𝐽, they always have to play. 𝐿𝐭𝐚𝐲, one of the best left backs in the world, in my opinion, they always have to be there. When it comes to Juventus, yes, they are in Champions League spots. For Sevilla, this game or this Europa League is very important to qualify for the next Champions League. For Juventus, maybe not so much, even if administered. Let's see what happens. But Juventus haven't won a European trophy since 1996. It's incredible that Juventus haven't won a European trophy in the 21st century, and Sevilla has won 6. But this doesn't mean that Sevilla has been a better side than Juventus this century. Juventus has won multiple Serie A. Di Maria is one of the players that is stepping up to the challenge in the Europa League, has scored 4 goals in the Serie A and 4 goals in the Europa League. So over there, if you back the individual market, maybe it's worth having a look at Di Maria. And Juventus has been reliable in the competition so far. They have conceded only 2 goals in 6 knockout games. So here are my odds. I think that an Asian handicap +1 for Sevilla is my favorite, 157. I could even back Sevilla with an Asian handicap +0.75, 189. And one that I love here, Sevilla to score over 0.5 goals. So to score only one goal at Juventus ground, it pays already 175. So these are the things that I will look at, but consider as well that Juventus defensively in the Europa League has been very, very decent. So maybe from all the ones that I said, I stay with Asian handicap +1 for Sevilla, 157, plain and simple.
Well, decent or lucky, because we saw it against Sporting Lisbon, Dani. They kept a clean sheet in Turin, but Perin and 𝐜𝐵𝐻 before him, they were crucial to get the clean sheet. Of course, the goalkeeper also played, but it's far from being perfect. I think this Juventus can be hurt.
He can, and it's far from perfect. It's been far from perfect in the last 2 years under Allegri. The big question with Juventus and Allegri is, how does Juventus play? Do they have a style of play? Do you know even what the best formation is? Well, the answer is very simple. No. Juventus don't have a style of play. They don't tend to go out on the pitch to dominate the play, but rather wait and try to exploit the other team's deficiencies. And they don't have a very clear starting 11. In fact, since last season, Juventus has changed 72 formations in 72 games. Only Fiorentina managed to do the same. So they never filled the same starting 11. A lot of chopping and changing. And yes, of course, there are rotation and there are turnovers. But I think this is quite telling. This season, Allegri has changed the module 3 or 4 times, sometimes with the back 3, sometimes with the back 4, even tried to play with 3 up front, 𝐬𝐭𝐴, Di Maria, and a striker. Didn't like it, didn't work. Now reverted back to a more reactive formation against Atalanta. Very good win. 2-0. By the way, the 21st win of the season with a clean sheet, and that's a record in Europe behind only Barcelona and Manchester United, if I'm not wrong. But it was in typical Juventus fashion. Scored, then retracted. Atalanta hit the post twice. It could have easily finished it 1-1. Look, the only good things about this Juventus side, and I don't mean to say it by disrespectfully, is that they've given young players a lot of chances. Ealing scored the weekend, and you got the likes of Soale, Miretti, Fagioli, Berenchea. So in the emergencies, Allegri has been able to develop the product of Juventus Academy, the product of Juventus B-side, who since a couple of years plays in Italy Serie C, and this is obviously giving the benefit to these young players. But when it comes to the big players, the new signings, the Paredes, the Pogba, they are disappointed. 𝐶𝐞𝐿 has been good, but recently is not delivering a lot. Milik is a bit a little hit and miss. I don't think he's going to stay last season. Juventus' best player should be Vlahovic. He suffered from a lack of balls given into him or services. Now he's been scoring a little bit more, 2 goals in a row. Let's see if he starts this one. But yes, Juventus' potential is much, much stronger than what the numbers suggest. Obviously, Juventus are going to be favorite on this one because of the pedigree, because of the play at home, and maybe the bookies are also looking at Sevilla poor record away from home. But with Mendilibar, they are unbeaten in 4 away games, and they drew the game against Manchester United in maybe lucky fashion, but they managed to hang on there. This is going to be difficult for Juventus. Look, I think that Juventus, should they qualify for a final against Roma or Bayer Leverkusen, they will have enough to probably beat them in their own style. Against Sevilla, who is a team that, yes, this season has underperformed, but has got some talent, has got some players who can provide a little bit of fantasy. I think they need something more Juventus, just than the old Juve style and, being really solid and compact. They need to be able to take the game onto them. Against Sporting Lisbon, as you mentioned rightly, we saw them cracking a little bit under the attacks of Sporting Lisbon, who is a side that is very courageous. For this reason, I'm going to go for Sevilla Asian handicap plus 0.75, which pays 181, which means if they draw, you win. If they win, you win. If they lose by 1 goal, you only lose alpha stake. So in other words, I don't think they're going to get trashed. Or if you do think this could be a very evenly matched game, you could go for an 1x and under 2.5 goals, a mini ACCA, put it together, 207, considering Juventus' problems of scoring lately. So 1x and under 2.5 goals, 207.
Sevilla, every time they've reached the quarterfinals of this competition, they won it.
Yes.
But there is a big concern, as well as Dani mentioned, the away form of Sevilla. Even in this Europa League, in the previous one, they were so lucky to get the draw in Old Trafford, but they are very poor. Alvaro, they've been traveling to Holland or to Turkey with an advantage and suffer a lot to keep that advantage. Also, you always remember this game against West Ham. They just defend most of the times. Here, I guess they have to propose something else and to try to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yes, and I think that the game at Old Trafford was about to follow the same script, and then something happened. The truth is that I wouldn't read too much, or I wouldn't take too many conclusions from the last 16 and the last 32 or the playoff round, because I think that it was under Sampaoli, different manager as well. With Mendilibar, the thing has changed. And one thing that is very interesting about Sevilla's Mendilibar is that they got this resilience in them. In fact, with Mendilibar, Sevilla has scored 3 goals in the last 5 minutes of the games. It happened, for example, against Athletic Club Bilbao. It happened against Villarreal. Even against Manchester United, they scored the 2 goals after the 80th minute. So that tells you that this is a side that has a certain belief. And crucial things have happened in Sevilla during the season. Not only the change of manager, also bringing back Bryan Gil and Lucas Ocampos has expanded their options up front, because Bryan Gil on the left and Lucas Ocampos, especially on the right, they are giving Sevilla speed, which was something that the team was lacking completely. The way Monchi crafted the squad in August was ridiculous, because there was no pace in there. And with Ocampos and Bryan Gil, the thing changes a lot. Juventus will have to be very worried of that too.
Yes.
And then players have been stepping up. I mean, it was inevitable that when Diego Carlos and 𝐿𝐭𝐼 left, Sevilla was going to have a void of leadership in defense. But 𝐿𝐭𝐼, for example, has done it. And he has become a very pivotal player, not only defending well, also playing as a holding midfielder when needed, and also scoring from the long range when Sevilla needed that. So, you know, during the season, there has been a transformation of Sevilla. If this game had been played in September, I would have told you, well, this is Juventus, one-way traffic. Right now, I'm not too sure. I think Juventus is slightly better than Sevilla still. But on the other hand, the mentality and the confidence of Sevilla can play a part as well. So that's why I'm telling you, I'm going to back Sevilla with an Asian handicap positive. Why not? Because I think that there is good money in there. But this is even a little bit underwhelming. I think that Sevilla is way more favorite than the bookmakers said. 520 for them to win is a little bit ridiculous.
Well, these teams haven't met in the last 6 years, and the bookies don't expect many goals. We cannot be surprised about this. Under 2.5 goals pays 1.8, over 2.25. This is what we have in Juve, Sevilla, Roma, Leverkusen. Let's see if we see a full Italian final, or Leverkusen and Sevilla have their chances. Of course, the second leg is the following week. In the meantime, we can still know your safe bets or favorite bets. Dani?
Roma not to lose against Leverkusen. So I'm going to go Roma Asian handicap 0-155.
And that looks like a safe one to me. Alvaro?
Very safe, I think. Asian handicap plus 1.25 for Sevilla. 141.
Also, not to get thrashed or lose by 2 goals in the Juventus Stadium. And Lloraca, Alvaro?
Mayaca will be Asian handicap plus 1.25 for Sevilla. Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Roma. And then I decided to add something from the Conference League, if I am allowed. West Ham to win.
Of course you are.
I think that, Edu, that this is bringing is increasing the ACCA very nicely. West Ham to win. Altogether, 409.
Of course. Also the conference semi-finals to be played on Thursday. Fiorentina, Basel, West Ham, AZ. Almar, Dani, Lloraca?
Roma Asian handicap corners -1 and Juventus Sevilla first half 0-0. Total odds 477. By the way, Conference League, Fiorentina play Basel. Fiorentina had a lot of chances to score at the weekend against Napoli. Maybe Fiorentina to score over 1.5 goals in that game. One of the teams that produces most shots in Serie A. Final West Ham Fiorentina. It'll be nice to see.
It will be nice. Then next video we can add the conference and give some more tips to the conference.
Yes.
Thank you, Dani. Thank you, Alvaro. Good luck to everyone. Don't forget, press the like, subscribe, and see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.